Hey YouTube, how you guys doing? It's Kyle here and welcome to a new video. So guys, this video is all about positioning, and in particular I'll be focusing on defensive positioning. I hope you guys enjoy. So guys, I'm going to be breaking this video up into 4 separate parts. First, I'll focus on overall positioning tips. Second, I'll focus on setting up for the first push as well as holding the first point. The third part will be about if the first hold fails, how to stop a snowball and how to set up for it. And finally, part 4 is going to be in-game positioning tips, as well as my favorite defensive setups for some of the more popular maps. Alright guys, so part 1 is about overall positioning tips. My biggest tip would be to stay with your team, especially if you're a support. Remember, supports are the guys who get dived on, they get blown up, and it's really important that you stay alive, especially with how powerful your ultimates are for your team's survivability in team fights. Especially sticking to DPS and tanks is really nice, especially heroes like McCree who can stop flankers. This will help keep you alive for a really long time, and also make sure you're getting out that necessary healing to keep your tanks alive. The next point I want to talk about is overextending. Make sure you don't overextend, and this is something that's learned over time, and it's not something you develop instantly. So don't be worried if you're overextending too much in the beginning, because after a while you sort of figure out how to play, properly without being too aggressive. And you need to be able to differentiate between a kill that you should chase and one that's going to lead to a bad trade or just a death. And this has a lot to do with respawn timings and other factors like enemy positioning, your health, and what your damage output is. Eventually you're going to figure this all out, but right now all I can say is don't overextend. Keeping that in mind, make sure you take height advantages whenever you can. Shooting down on enemies is normally going to be a little bit better, it's going to be more advantageous, and it's going to allow you to retreat to a lower position if necessary. Remember, if you're on the ground, it's not like you can just jump up on top of a giant ledge unless you're someone like Pharah or maybe Genji. But you can always jump down, so that vertical movement is there for you if you start in a higher position. On top of that, it's really important to position yourself near cover. D.Va's ultimate will just wipe out your team if you can't quickly get behind a wall or some sort of building. So make sure that you're close to sort of things that you can get behind, and also this will help protect you from ultimates like High Noon. And remember that these tips are used specifically for defensive holds. They may carry over, but offensive tips will vary slightly in the video I make about them, and they're most likely going to be a little more aggressive. So part 2 is about setting up for the first push / holding the first point. Now this is really important because I feel like sometimes people throw away the opportunity to hold the enemy team at the first point. And so to do this, you need to have really good positioning, right? So you're going to want to have your tanks generally hold the choke with a support close by to heal them. You're going to probably want to have your DPS on either side of the tanks, with one most likely in a higher location. And you're going to want to support nearby those DPS to help heal them. You normally want every single person in a position that they can fall back quickly to some sort of cover. Like I said, this is going to help you defend against ultimates, and also going to help you stay alive so you can get heals from your supports. And remember, you want to rely on your tanks in these first points. You don't want to be pushing in front of them. The Zarya shield, when she gives you the bubble, it's not God mode. Don't use it to engage. You want to wait for them to engage unless you get some sort of pick that's going to allow you to just wipe them completely. And remember, stay behind your Reinhardt shield. He has a shield for a reason. With that being said, sometimes it's important to have your tanks fall back, especially if they need healing, in an attempt to lure the enemy. Now this is a little more mind games than it is like a positioning tip, but having them push back a little bit and making sort of a U shape or an arch that you can have them funnel into, have the enemy funnel into that is, and then shoot down at them from all angles can be an extremely effective way to wipe the enemy team. And also make sure you're putting yourself in a position where you're not going to die, and one that cannot be dived upon easily. Survivability is extremely important, as I talked about in a previous video. Because of how long the spawn times take for defenses to get back to that first point, points like Morra and Route 66, holy shit, it takes forever to get back. So you need to be really cautious that you don't die early, because it could just lead to a complete team wipe and the enemy team could snowball. So let's say that the first hold fails. That's what part 3 is about. It's about how to stop a snowball. Now most maps are going to have high ground. I know I've just talked about this, but make sure you get up there, because the enemy team's going to have to run up there. I'm talking about maps specifically like Hanamura, where the enemy team most likely is going to take the top right position, or if you're defending, it's the top left. If you can get up there before them, you potentially can stop their rush. Now it's really important that you get your DPS up there, because you don't want to give up a free high ground position, because if they're shooting down on you, it's going to be hell. On top of that, make sure you're not engaging enemies. Now, I think that this is a mistake specifically for lower ranked players, but sometimes after you lose the first point, you can be greatly caught out of position. You're way too close to that first point, and you just get wiped out. Your respawn time is all off, and you completely screw over your team. Make sure you fall back, and make sure you know, okay, if they're a second away from capturing this first point, I need to get my ass back to that second point to make sure I don't give up a free opportunity to defend. So make sure you're not staggering deaths, and make sure you stick with your team and find those high ground defending positions and group up together to make sure you're fighting in full strength. Alright guys, welcome to part 4, which is about in-game positioning tips as well as my favorite defensive setups for some popular maps. This is Temple of Anubis, and I'm going to be showing you 2 different holding positions. The first one is the right room hold. That's the right room over there. As you guys know, it comes up and around into there. And you're going to probably want a Junkrat and maybe Symmetra. If not, you'll have a different kind of DPS in there with the Junkrat. And you're also going to probably want to support. And now up here, this is what I like to call the platform, and this is the bridge. You're going to want a Reinhardt here for sure, your other DPS, probably a McCree or Soldier, and then another support to help them heal as well. The choke points you're holding are that right doorway entrance and these 2 archways. You're also probably going to want your DPS to be shooting down those stairs. It just applies some high pressure and really makes it annoying for the enemy team, and it can also get some great poke on them. So you're essentially holding this L shape right here. The second hold is a bridge hold. This is obviously the bridge. You're going to want 1 person in the right room. Your remaining 5 will be up here. You also can have 1 person down in this room, especially your Reaper. He can just absolutely destroy people if they come in. You're going to want your right room person to fall back at the first sign of heavy pressure. You want to make sure he gets his ass up here. You're going to have your Reinhardt switch his position to right here to cover this. That's what I like to call the platform choke area. And you're going to be holding from the bridge. So they're going to come up through here if they come the right side, and you're going to be here. If they come from the left side, you're already up here and you blast them here. So your holding position is this bridge area right here, and then right over there at that choke point. Alright guys, the next map I want to talk about is Dorado. And this is one of the maps that I get held on the most by defenses in competitive play, and I'm going to show you how it's done. So first of all, you're going to probably want your Reinhardt to start right here, and you'll have almost your entire team here. There's absolutely no problem with doing that, and a lot of teams do it. It's perfectly fine. And you're just going to basically shoot down and rain hell on them as they start coming up. Now eventually, and this is important, you are going to want to fall back, and you're going to fall back into this position right here. You don't actually need anyone up here, but you want to be behind your Reinhardt. You also probably want a Zarya, and you're going to hold them at this choke point. Now this is really important because some teams try to stay up here the whole game in this sort of like corner. Don't do that. You want to come right here, hide behind your Reinhardt, let your McCrees and your flankers go around them if they need to, and you can also hold them at this choke if they try to come around through the top. Alright guys, so the next map I want to talk about is Morra. Now this is a great map because it's a great map for defense because of the choke points. Now you have this window up here. This is primarily used by flankers, and you have the main doorway, which is used for pretty much the rest of the team. Now this setup is extremely simple. You have both your tanks down here in this area. You can use this closed door as cover as well as the closed door right there, and you can use this left room as cover to fall back if you need to. Now it's really important that you have a DPS in this left room. The reason is you want to be able to shoot across at them as they're over here. On top of that, you want another DPS up top here. The reason is you don't want to let flankers get in, especially if they can get far behind over here, because you're not going to have anyone covering back here. So it's really important that your DPS up here stay alert. On top of that, it's important to have one support down in this area. You can use the rock as cover if you need to. You can also use the side of this little building. You can heal the DPS and your 2 tanks as well as your DPS up here. If you have a Widow, you can swap the left house DPS for Widow up here. But this is an extremely important position to hold, and make sure you have at least 1 DPS up here. He's going to put down a ton of covering fire for your tanks, and they're going to be able to hold this extremely easily, especially with a Reinhardt. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and remember, if you take anything away from this, try to take the high ground and stay with your team while focusing on not overextending to ensure that you have full strength team fights. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to see more maps covered, I'd be happy to go over them in the future. I really hope this video helps some of you. I've been getting some great feedback lately, and it's really encouraging. Make sure you leave any questions or comments you have down below. Take it easy, guys, and peace.